Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to have Dr. Bell here, but I refer to her as Jen. Hey, Jen.
Hey, Dr. Rel.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to have you here. A part of the reason why I'm excited to have Jen here is because we're going to do like maybe a little bit of a reverse. Instead of like white coat to white collar, Jen did a little white coat, kind of white collar, and now she's in a teaching role, which we will get into later. But let's start with an icebreaker. Every now and then, some of our guests, I'll want to do an icebreaker, and for you, I want to do it. And I think it's really two because I don't know the answer to this. Let's hit it off. What was your very first job before ever stepping foot into a college campus?
My first job was when I was 16 and I worked at AMC Theaters. Uh,
Okay.
I worked at, I
Everyone
was
wants some popcorn right now.
I was in a magnet school for TV production and film. And
Oh,
I was doing that from like 8 to like senior year of school, senior year of high school. And so like it was just fitting to like work in a movie theater.
that's so
I was
cool.
like
Do you
deep into it.
That's but like, what do you mean deep into it? Like you had to watch all the movies before they came out? Well, before,
Well, like you get the chance to do it, but
right.
like I was like a big into film. Like me and like for my class,
Yeah.
like I directed a film and won awards for it.
Wow. What?
It's just a 4 minute silent movie.
Can
That's
can I
it.
see this?
Um,
Do you still have
no, because this was pre. I of course have a DVD of
oh,
it.
DVD? Does anyone still know what a DVD is?
Well, like I can play it on my computer.
You gotta save it and upload it to the drive. We have got to do this. We're gonna have another episode just of your 4 minute. It'll be the viewing or listening of your 4 minute short film. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
so I won like Miami Children's Film Festival and then an
Wow.
NAACP Axel Award for it.
Yes.
And then I burnt out at
Girl, you
17.
never mentioned this. Is so funny. I never knew this. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. All right, Jen. So let's talk about your time in Miami. So you have 4 degrees, girl. That's something else I didn't know about you. 4 degrees. So you
Yes.
have an associate's degree in psychology from Miami-Dade Honors. So from an
Hmm.
associate's degree to a PhD and a bachelor's and a master's all in between. Tell us about your experience maybe getting your associate's degree. Like, was that the plan for you to go to a junior college or did it just happen? Tell us about that.
It's a little bit of both. I wanted to do like a community college first, mainly because like my sister did it. My sister is 8 years older than
Hmm.
me, and so she did it, and I wanted to do
Hmm.
it, and it made sense financially because your first 2 years of undergrad are all gen ed studies
Hmm.
anyway. So I was like, might as well save that money and do a community
Right.
college. But like as I was going through, like you meet with your CAP counselors every year or so, my CAP counselor was like, "You have really good grades. You don't need to go to community college first." And I was like, "Well, I want to, but I'll apply." So I applied to like, I had Florida does this thing called Florida Bright
Hmm.
Futures, where depending on where your GPA, SAT, and ACT scores are, you can get either 75% off at any Florida
Hmm.
school or 100% off at a full ride at any Florida school. So
Hmm.
I had got the 75% off.
Okay.
So I only applied to Florida schools and I applied to Florida
Okay.
State and I got in and I wanted to go. However, I'm a bad test taker. So my SAT scores were
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
So they wanted me to come in the summer, do the CARE program,
Mm.
prove that I can do that
Right.
work, da 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 da.
Hmm.
And so their summer started about a couple of days after
Hmm.
graduation. But at the same time, I had applied to Miami Dade Community College, Miami Dade College now, had created an honors college program,
Nice.
and they were focusing on minorities
Wow.
in the Miami area.
Wow. It's like
And
a
so,
junior
yeah,
HBCU.
a
Yeah,
little bit,
that's
yeah. So,
cool.
like within the community college, they
Hmm.
had a specific honors college if you had certain GPA and you were a minority. they wanted to bring you in. Since it's Miami, it was mainly like Hispanic and a
Right.
few Black
Right.
students.
Right.
So I applied, and I showed them. I had created a portfolio for my film, all my
Back to
film
the
stuff.
film. All right, you in the
So
right field, Jen.
it's weird. I did it. I did my interview, and I'm like, well, I have this portfolio. Y'all want to see it? And they're like, sure. And after that, they're like, okay, we can't officially say it, but you're in. It's done. Like you're officially
Yeah.
in. And I was like, let me get that in
Right.
paper
Yep.
in
Okay.
writing first.
That part.
Let me get that in
Yes.
writing first. But what they offered with the honors college was, um, you get, since I had 75% off while there, and they also paid me a stipend
Ooh.
because they didn't want us to
Yes.
work. They wanted us to
Totally focus
focus
on
on
school.
our
Right.
time there. Yeah, and I was like, and I got my summer off.
Oh, we're gonna get into that. You and these summers. Listen, Jen makes
Like I like
decisions
myself.
on having her summers off. She does not play about her summers.
No,
Yes.
ma'am. So I was like, you know what? I could do the
Yep.
2 years, get paid to go
Right.
to school, and I'll have my GPA
Right.
up higher, and then I can transfer to, I could transfer to
Right.
Florida State. But while I was there, I had wanted to I had been not lost in the sauce, but I was
Yeah.
getting a little hype, and I wanted to go to
Okay.
Howard, but that didn't work out.
Okay.
So everything happens
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah.
But like, that was like the main reason. I don't like to say that a lot of my decisions were based
Hmm.
off of money, but a lot of my decisions were based off of money
Yes.
because I'm
Yeah.
poor,
I was gonna say,
and
we'll
so
we'll
like,
get into
and
later
then,
how you receive money to do this. A lot of your decisions with your associate's degree was in money, and even as a doctorate student, you
mhm,
receive funding. So we'll get into that.
yeah. So yeah, and then while there, I was trying to
Hmm.
do film, but they didn't have a program.
Mm.
So like for a couple of months, I was going back and forth on a
Yeah.
major. I chose
Hmm.
psychology, took intro to psych, hated it.
Oh.
Just hated it. I thought it
Yeah.
was dumb. And then was interested in like, but do biology, liked biology, wasn't good at biology, but I was like, if I can combine psychology and
Mm.
pathology together somehow. And I didn't know about neuroscience until I had already transferred out in my junior year. I found out about
Mm.
neuroscience.
And
And so
and
then
would you say neuroscience
it
is
just,
your love? Is that, or it's just kind of, did it find you? You can be
I think
honest.
so. Like, I don't know if it defines me. I just think the brain is
Yes.
very cool. It's really
Mm-hmm.
complicated. I'm really into like hormones and
Yes.
behavior. And so everything the human body does
Based on.
is triggered
Yep.
by this right here. Um, like you could like yeah, the heart's important, but the brain
Yes.
controls the heart. So I'm like just like I was initially interested in like, why does this like why do people
Mm.
act certain ways? How do you have certain
Right.
psychological disorders? Like what is the
Right.
science behind it? That was like my initial thing. But learning more about the brain and seeing how
Mm-hmm.
necessary it is,
Mm-hmm.
how vital it is, and how it controls like just moving my arm, just basic behaviors, like how it comes, like how it
Yes.
all works out, and how there's also like
Mm-hmm.
redundancy in the brain. I just think
Really,
that it's just
explain the
really cool and
redundancy in the
complicated. And
brain.
so like, and as an educator now, I tend to do this with students too, and they did this to
Mm-hmm.
me as an undergrad as well. It's like we kind of
Mm-hmm.
simplify the brain. You're like, okay, this area of the brain, the frontal lobe is responsible for this and this only, and the parietal lobe is responsible for this. Like you separate the brain into sections and say that this area is
Yes.
necessary for this, but not. So you can, so like the big study that everybody talks about, like
Mm-hmm.
Phineas Gage, like the one where like a rod shot
Mm-hmm.
through his
Mm-hmm.
frontal lobe, um, and his personality changed because the frontal lobe is
Mm-hmm.
responsible for personality. But there's other aspects of the brain that was damaged, but there's other areas of the brain that back
Mm.
that up. So there's
It's like
um,
it's like a
like a
survival
fail safe.
mechanism. Okay.
Yeah. Like, all right, this isn't working.
Right.
That's okay. We
Right.
can do this. Right. We lost this.
Yes.
All right, we got that. Like, it takes a lot for you to like lose one whole
Mm,
action or one whole thing, because like everybody thinks vision is only in the occipital lobe, but it spreads out to
got
other
you.
brain areas too. And then also, if you don't use certain areas, you lose certain
Hmm.
areas, and neurons like to spread
Mm.
out and do.
Oh,
It's
this is
like,
so
all right,
cool.
maybe
We
it
may
is a
have to have
passion. So,
another episode just diving into this. Like, I have so many questions now. I wonder, is there a test maybe to see what types, what regions of your brain are not being exercised? There's not, is there? No?
not really, because when you do like MRIs or fMRIs or those type of studies, they're
Right.
looking at brain activity, but they're just looking at like oxygen
Okay.
and
Right.
what's being used. And so like sometimes you
Hmm.
see it, sometimes you don't, and there's a lot of stuff, there's so much
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
don't know. And that's why I think it's kind of cool. Although sometimes like the unknown is terrifying. Like I think
Yeah.
space is terrifying, but
I'm
the
just
brain I
I'm
can.
just afraid of the dark too. So there's just no way I would make it in space. I would be like, um,
There's so
yes.
much we don't know.
Okay, okay. So you went on after your associate. You told us about your psychology spill. You received an MS in
Hmm.
biology. Let's talk about your PhD in
Hmm.
neuroscience. What a perfect way to lead into this. And
Okay.
so you focused on the neuromodulation of a particular ion channel by metabolic hormones. And so that's very interesting because of the
Okay.
postdoc you secured. But let's backtrack a little bit before defending and graduating. You also was a recipient of a
Hmm.
postdoctoral chemical synthesis training grant, the T32 from NIH. So I know, as we mentioned before,
Yes.
you're like, oh, I don't make decisions off money, but I make decisions off money. So, and I applied
Yes.
for the T32 predoctoral grant and I was denied. So,
Hmm.
let's talk
Okay.
about maybe what made you, first of all, why did you apply? Was it just money based? Like did you discover that they had this chemical synthesis training that applied to your program? Like how did you even discover that? And let's get into the details of the grant.
Okay. So prior to I was in two labs when I was in grad school. I started in one lab looking at male rat sex behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and they eventually lost funding. But while I was learning about male rat sex behavior, I got interested in
Mm-hmm.
and pheromones and the olfactory system and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And I wanted to stay within that area, but there were
Explain
no
our
other
audience
labs.
what are pheromones.
Oh, so pheromones are the chemicals that animals secrete and that cause a behavioral response in animals of the same species,
Mm-hmm.
um, or like predator prey situations too.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
works. So there's certain pheromones that female rodents give off that a male rodent will detect, and they can trail the female scent to her den,
Mm-hmm.
do what it do. Or there are certain pheromones that animals secrete to have other ones stay away. So, like if a rodent gets scared, they'll secrete a pheromone that another mouse can detect,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll know to stay away from this area.
Okay.
So it's a way of communicating.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so I just thought it was really interesting because females can do this really cool thing where they can smell out a more viable male.
Hmm. I wish
And I
we
was just
had
like,
that ability.
so like a female rat or a mouse will like, let's say she mated with one male and got pregnant, but within a certain time period came across a more viable male, will abort that situation, like naturally abort it, and mate with that one so that she'll have a more viable offspring.
Wow.
And I was just like really into like smell and stuff. But
Yeah.
when I switched over to labs, no one like was doing
Yeah.
that. And so I joined another lab that was looking at olfaction, which is your sense of smell,
Yeah.
but in a different aspect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had learned about it in communicating, but I didn't know about it in like having an impact on your metabolic behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it makes perfect sense. So like, you've ever been really hungry and you're looking for food, like you can smell the food, like you
Mm-hmm.
can smell the fries
Yes.
drop from McDonald's before seeing the golden
Yes.
arches.
Yes. You sure could.
So what happens is when you're really hungry, your sense of smell increases.
Mm-hmm.
So like satiety hormones modulate the receptors and or neurons within your olfactory
Mm-hmm.
system so that they're more sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you eat, they go back down to baseline.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just how they interact normally. But if you were to become overweight, obese, type 2 diabetic, all the fat in the foods can then kill off olfactory sensory neurons.
Mm-hmm.
And you can lose your sense of smell. And one of the signs of like um, diabetes is you're also like one of the symptoms is also like decreased sense of smell.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So looking at the connection between those things, and I was like, well, this is pretty cool. I didn't know
Yes,
this
that
existed.
is cool.
Um,
It's so
yeah.
cool.
So like that's like the broad scope, but then there's a particular one particular potassium channel within the olfactory
Mm.
system that is important for modulating the connection between like smell and metabolism.
Wow.
And so the lab that I joined was focused on that, and I was terrified because they are a molecular biophysics lab.
Yes.
And I'm coming there with a psychology degree.
Wow. So,
So
do
it
you feel
was,
like there was a huge learning curve for you in the beginning?
yes, God,
Yeah.
it was
Wow.
terrible
Yeah.
because it was like a
Yeah.
like I just did like
Right,
behavior,
right.
and so then I was trying to do behavior
Yes.
there. Then I got an
Yeah.
allergy, and then I started doing more of this molecular biophysics stuff.
Wow.
And so it was a huge vote of confidence. Like
Mm.
once I did finish the degree, that I was
Yes,
like,
Jen.
holy
Snap
shit.
for Jen.
Because
That's awesome.
I remember looking at this stuff like my first years of grad
Yeah.
school, my first year in the lab, and
It's
I
like
was
reading a
like,
foreign language. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, what? I'm like, you know what? I don't know this. I'm gonna watch rats have sex. That's it. And then like I was forced to like go a certain
Yeah.
route, and I was able to decipher the
Wow.
code.
That's so awesome. I'm
And
proud of you. I'm proud
yes,
of you. We kind
thank
of went through
you.
the journey together. I remember spending late nights in
Yes,
the lab. When I was writing my dissertation, I pulled you and another friend to come in the lab with me late at night. Do you remember that?
yes, that was
Yeah.
awesome. It was nice to see someone else's lab.
Oh my. So let's go back to the grant. So
Yeah,
this was the research that you focused on. So you were able to apply to the chemical synthesis training grant that fit right into your research scope. So
yes.
how did you find the grant? Did you just randomly do a Google search one day like I need funding for my research in chemical synthesis? Like how did that happen?
Not at all.
Okay.
So actually, um, another happy happenstance. FSU has a strong chemical senses community.
Huh.
There's a lot of neuroscience researchers within the program that do smell research and taste research, which are the chemical senses.
Right, right.
And so they have an institutional T32 that they've been running for like 30 some odd years. And
Nice.
so it was just like, I happened to join that lab when I
Right.
had to
Wow.
change, and my professor was like, all right, we're gonna do this. And at this point, we're gonna add people to the grant. It also helped being a minority.
Yes.
Since
For
there
sure.
were no other minorities on the grant.
Yeah, we
So- and they're like, oh, like
yes.
they're like, you're gonna apply for this. Like, okay.
Right, right. That's so
So
awesome.
it's
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. So I know that a lot of times in the like when I know for me, like when I was selecting what lab I wanted to go in, when I was doing my lab rotations, I did not think to ask those types of questions, you know?
Me
I didn't think
neither.
to say,
I
does this lab get awarded NIH grants regularly, like over the last
yes,
30 years type of grants. You know,
yes.
I didn't think to ask that, but that's definitely like a really nice tip for
That is like
students.
even in for the first lab I was in, because
Yeah,
I just followed my I was really into like the neurobiology of sex
right.
behavior,
Yeah.
and I just was like I did undergrad research there, and when I got into grad school, I'm like I'm in that lab.
Yep.
It's a wrap. I didn't look at other labs.
Yeah.
I was just focused on it, but I did not ask about grant funding. Like they had just got a grant the year before I started,
Mm-hmm.
and my professor was already like in her 70s
Mhm.
at that time, and I didn't think to ask like, okay, so when this grant is over in 4 years,
Right.
what?
Right.
Um, what are your plans for additional grants? Like, what do you plan to do with the money? Like, what are your goals for me? Like, I
Right.
didn't ask any of that stuff. I was just like happy to be a part, happy to be a grad student, happy to be accepted. Just I'll do the work, it'll be fine.
Right.
And then joining that other lab, this professor, she thinks ahead of the curve.
Mm.
My dissertation professor, and she had multiple grants running at one time.
Wow.
And when one was about to end, she was working on another one.
Wow. That's
So
awesome.
it showed me like
Yeah.
what to look for in a professor. So like for kids, or not kids, but like people who are entering grad school in the sciences,
Mhm.
looking to join a lab, ask about the money,
Mhm.
and what their plans are, and ask to see the grant.
Right.
Like, you're allowed to see the grant.
You mean like walk in the office? Okay, I know you have a grant. Can I see it? Like, how do you ask
No,
a
like
PI to see their grant?
when they accept you into their lab,
Yes.
or when you're discussing, like if you're in rotation
Yes.
and you express your interest, and they're like, oh yeah, you would fit in with this research that I have on X grant.
Right.
Oh, can I see that?
Gotcha.
And a good professor will just offer it
Yes.
off rip.
That's awesome. That's good
So
advice.
yeah,
Thank you, Jen, for sharing that. That's really good advice. So in this
learn the hard way.
so in this amazing lab that you were in, where you were working with pheromones and understanding these ion channels from metabolic hormones, you led to your postdoctorate opportunity at the Monell Chemical Science Center. So why don't you tell us a little bit how you were able to secure that position? It sounds
Mhm,
like your lab was really established, so maybe it was through connections in your lab. But
mhm.
tell us how, and I also want you to tell us what this center actually does.
Okay. So within like the chemical senses community, there's like two main conferences. There's the Association for Chemical Senses conference, and they do like smell and taste research. And there's also SSIBS, which is like something society in ingestive behavior. So they mainly do taste research. I was in a smell lab, so we would always go to ACHEMS each year, and I would present my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do research in the chemical senses, you know about
Yes.
Monell, because Monell is the premier chemical senses institute in all of the United States. Like
Nice.
if you any type of smell and taste
Mm-hmm.
research that is going on is coming out of Monell. They are pumping out a whole lot of COVID stuff right
Wow.
now
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
because
That absolutely makes
yes,
sense.
they are the smell and taste people. So they frequent those conferences,
Mm-hmm.
and I got on. They have an executive board, and they had student
Mm-hmm.
representatives. My professor said you should like. Don't you want to apply to be on the student? It's like not really, but you're suggesting it for a
Yep.
reason.
Yeah.
So I was on the board for like 2 years, and then I would also they do like this diversity
Mm-hmm.
award, and I got it every year. It's a diversity travel award, and I would get it every
Mm-hmm.
year. And they would do like we have like a lunch with all of the diversity award recipients and professors, and a lot of these professors were at
Mm-hmm.
Monell, so like my name was out there.
Yes. That's awesome.
And before I even like was starting my dissertation, my professor got an email from someone at Monell like, "Do you still have this student? And is she graduating soon?"
Wow.
And they had a position open on their institutional T32
Yes. Oh,
that
perfect.
they wanted me to apply on.
Nice. So
So
did that speed up
then
the
I was
dissertation
like,
process? Like, was your professor okay?
"Yeah."
So were you guys even talking about you like writing up your dissertation before that?
She like I had already been in grad school for an extended
Yeah.
period of time, and so she was talking about it, but I was like, listen, I know how these things go, lady. I've got like
Ah,
2 more years. And she's like, no, you don't.
no, you
And
don't.
I
I
was
got an
like,
email. There are people out there looking for you.
and she's like, all right, we got this email, you're
Yes.
applying to this position. I was like, well, I'll apply
Yeah.
for it, but like, I'm not going to get it, and I'm going to be here for 2 years.
Wow. So
It's like, so it did
yeah.
push things along because like my dissertation and my research was a little
Mm-hmm.
scattered, because I did do like a
Yeah.
master's, and that was like 2 years of work within that lab that I couldn't put towards the dissertation.
Gotcha.
And I was working on one thing and it was not
Yeah.
working out, and I got an allergy. So then I started working on another thing, and I was like, all right, well, I got to work on this thing for at least two,
Yeah.
3 years.
To see the
And we
results.
somehow, yeah, we made like a freaking dissertation and created a story from everything that
That
I was
is
doing.
so cool. I'm gonna have to go search you on ProQuest now and read your. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. Don't.
Don't do it.
That's cool. That's so cool, Jen. So, why
Mhm.
don't you tell us what projects you did at Monell, if you can?
Um, yeah, so I was at Monell for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
The first half like the first half of the first year, I was kind of lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined a lab that was um focused on taste,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the smell background. I was like, well, I've done the smell thing. Let me do some taste stuff.
Hmm.
And that was also a bit of a learning curve. And they were focused on like the composition of like carbohydrates to fats,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, to whatever, and to sugars in the diet, its impact on sweet receptors, salt receptors, da 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 da.
Right.
So that did take time for me to learn. And one of the things as a postdoc on the training grant at Monell, you're supposed to be on that training grant temporarily, and you're supposed to focus on getting like an F31,
Yeah.
like a big NIH
Yeah.
grant. So like I started in June, July,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, okay, so you're gonna miss the August deadline, but you should have something for a December deadline for a grant. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what I want to do.
Right.
um, I was trying to do one study, but like that was a um, connection with another lab, and another professor wanted dibs on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I backed off. I started getting into the organoids. We could discuss
We
organoids,
did.
where you can build um, organs, or receptors, not receptors, but
Yeah.
cells in like a 3D
Yes.
sphere in a dish,
Mm-hmm.
and want to do more molecular stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to make taste bud organoids
Nice.
in a dish, and see. Um, I wanted to see how like the microbiome was impacting the formation or the functioning of taste receptors.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're on a diet that's got however many fat to carbohydrate ratio,
Mm-hmm.
how does that impact the gut microbiome?
Right.
How does that impact your taste perception?
Right. Right.
And so that's the route that I was trying to go on. Things didn't start moving until like the second year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I did a project where I just had I let go of the organoids because they were getting too complicated. They were just it was a lot.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing was looking at different diets with a different fat to carbohydrate
Mm-hmm.
ratio, looking at how the gut microbiome was different in each of these
Mm-hmm.
animals once they were on the diet for however long.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to move that to like looking into the mouth and seeing if it changed the um, amount of so many types of sweet or salty receptors on the tongue,
Mm-hmm.
and if it impacted how they were physiologically.
What are the names of the sweet receptors?
Oh, so they're like so they're sweet, salty, sour, and
Uh-huh.
bitter.
Those are all the four receptors in our on our tongue.
Yeah, but we also have receptors. There's controversy for umami, which is savory, that
Mm.
we have, but those are like amino acid receptors.
Mm-hmm.
There's also controversy for fat taste receptors.
Hmm.
Um, some people in the field think that there's fat taste receptors. Some people think it's just a mouthfeel.
What?
I think it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
Then their cats have calcium taste receptors, and there's some evidence that humans may also have calcium taste receptors too.
Okay.
So there's
Why
more
they
to
like
it than what
milk
you think.
so much? That's why it's like in history.
That and that
Cat's milk.
They're carnivores, so
Yeah.
like I think it works with their diet
Yeah.
because they are
Yeah.
like full on carnivores. Don't give a cat anything with vegetables in it. They're just not gonna eat
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to see. But then like within the sweet receptors, they have like annoying science names like T1R da 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 da, like and T2R this.
Yeah.
So like you know
Yeah.
how we put letters
Yep.
and numbers on things.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So
I do.
nothing fancy.
Okay, okay. Now you worked on a really cool project with Arm& and Hammer and the yoga experiment. Why don't you tell us about that?
So I was like another lab was working on it,
Okay.
and I assisted the best that I can by contributing. But so one of the cool things about Monell is that they are a mix between like academia and industry.
Mm-hmm.
So we have sponsors like Kellogg, Firmenich, who does they produce perfumes. We have Pepsi, Coca-Cola at once. So a lot of people in the food industry and the perfume industry
Mm-hmm.
are sponsors with Monell.
Nice.
So Arm& and Hammer had became a sponsor, or they were interested in combating the smell of like sweaty yoga pants.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you wear your yoga pants and when you wash them, they get clean, but they don't smell
The odor
like
isn't
right,
totally out.
totally gone.
Yeah.
So the Arm & Hammer is like, that's what we're gonna fight for at that point in time. However, there is no odor that you can run an experiment on. So like, you know, spray on a pair of
Right.
pants or whatever.
Right.
Then
You would need
wash
a
them.
live experiment.
Yes. So what a lab at Monell was focusing on was creating specifically female crotch aroma. So they wanted to create this aroma so that Arm & Hammer can use it for those studies. So it required women so like Nike donated like really nice yoga pants.
Wow.
To wear, and we would wear, like I as a participant,
Well,
I would
that's
wear.
so nice of you. You and your coworkers get to fool around with your smells and your
with
sweat.
my essence.
Yes, your essence. Essence, excuse me.
Yeah, so like they're like work out in your pants for like a minimum of 45 minutes. Put them in a Ziploc bag, roll it up, get all the air out, and you have to wear it like 3 other times. Yes. So they were stank.
That is so funny.
And then
Do you
like
still have these
turn it
pants?
in.
I just need to know.
No, I had to give them back
okay.
to science.
Okay. You don't.
And so then what they had, there were other people who had to like smell it.
That is so funny. All right. So I just hold on. Well, let's just pause for a second. You know, when like you're looking at clinical data, like you know how there are like code names for people. Like, did you all have code names? So Jen wasn't.
Yeah, I
you
was
were like T1
subject something another.
something, right? Okay.
Yeah, subject 153.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Like that.
I just need to know that. All right. So you said you and your coworkers had donated your paint.
Like I didn't have to smell it since I was a donor.
Okay.
There were other people who were coworkers as well as outside people. And so what they would do was they cut out the crotches.
Yes.
And then they would like put them in like a box with like, you know, a filter top. And they would have to like sniff it and give qualifiers. So one of the hard things with smell is that like it's really hard to get like one universal term that represents what something smells like to everyone.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
And then you have to think of underlying conditions, like you mentioned. If someone has diabetes, their smell may not be as their sense of smell and it may not be as strong.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so like they were qualifying it and trying to like create like an artificial version of female crotch odor.
Oh my god.
So I think Arm & Hammer released this detergent already.
Oh wow.
I don't know if like 2020 threw it off.
Wow.
But like I contributed, like me and my essence.
Oh, that is so cool. Now we need to go find it and make sure you get an affiliate link or something. That's so cool, Jen. That's
That was
dope.
fun. But like
So
that's some of the cool stuff they do at
at
Monell.
Monell. And so you decided after 2 years to leave the sweaty yoga pants and the taste bud organoids you were creating to join the university. I'm sorry, to join the Center College in Kentucky as a visiting professor in behavioral neuroscience.
Yes.
Okay, so why give up on all of these cool taste and smell and research to go back to teaching?
So as a grad student, I was a teaching assistant, so a TA.
Mhm.
So I was used to doing both, like
Mhm.
teaching and being in the lab, teaching and being in the lab.
Mhm.
Um, and then like you get to a point where you're like, I just really want to focus on research. I don't want to be teaching all the time.
Yeah.
And so I got to do that in a postdoc, and I miss teaching.
Mhm.
I miss like the aspect of like talking to undergrads
Yes.
because like since it's like a lone institute, there's no undergrads, there's no grad students, it's just postdocs and PIs,
Mhm.
and you're just heads down research.
Yes.
That is it. And so I started missing it. And so what I ended up doing was I found myself like looking for other opportunities. So like we were next to University of UPenn,
Mhm.
so they would have different things for like teaching science, different
Mhm.
workshops. So I just ended up taking a whole bunch of like workshops on like teaching science to undergrads,
Wow.
things like that.
Wow.
And then I
Talk about taking
what call
initiative
it?
while you were working. You were also trying to prepare for
Yeah,
the next step. That's something else we'll talk about at another
yeah.
time.
Yeah. I also got a part time position as an adjunct at St. Joe's
Mhm.
University my second year. And like they're like, you can do this as long as it doesn't interfere
Your
with you
research.
doing your research. And
Mhm.
I was like, cool. And so I taught like one day out of the week.
Yeah.
But I just liked I felt happier on campus
Mm.
than at work because I spent like all my time in the
Mhm.
office. I couldn't spend any time doing the research because my research involved
Mhm.
animals. I have the allergy, so the tech was doing all the research. So all I would get would be like data and just like inputting data, analyzing
Mm.
data. And I was just like, I don't want to do
Yeah.
this. And so
Yeah. So you
what?
and
Yeah.
so why did you choose Kentucky?
So it wasn't on purpose. So um I was writing an F-32
Mhm.
for or F-31, one or the other, for like I was required to do it, and it's a training grant, and you have to write up your training program. And in my training program, I had a whole bunch of stuff on teaching
Mm.
undergraduates.
Mhm.
And when they reviewed my grant, like we had an in-house review, they're like, you need to take all this stuff out. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, they want to produce people who are working at big research universities. You're
Right.
talking about taking your research and making it,
Into a
applicable to
teaching.
undergraduates. And I
Right.
was like, that's what I want to do. And
Right.
they're
Right.
like, just say this and don't do that. And so then I just stopped working on that grant and started applying for jobs.
Wow.
Uh, I
Gotcha.
was like, all right, I'm not doing this. And
Gotcha.
I am a part of, there is a teaching biological psychology neuroscience Facebook group.
Wow. What an
Yes,
interesting you need to add me to this group. To
I
read
have
on
like a whole,
hormones and taste
it's really,
research
they do put up some really cool stuff on this
and
site.
redundancy
But
in the brain. Like this is so interesting. You guys, I may go get another degree. No, I'm just playing. But
don't do
this
it.
you said don't do it.
Don't do it. It's a trap. It's a trap.
It's a It sounds so cool though.
Yeah. So they talk about different like teaching things to do with undergrads, and they
Right.
also advertise jobs.
Nice.
So I saw the job for center
Hmm.
on Facebook.
Wow.
Um, and my previous advisor, my dissertation advisor, is from Kentucky.
Nice.
And I was like, what is this school?
Right.
Who is this? And she's
Right.
like, it's a really good school. You need to apply.
Right. Right.
I said, okay. So I applied
She was a
there.
referral for you, right?
Yes. I
Good.
applied there. I applied to UNC Chapel Hill,
Mm-hmm.
and I also applied to Notre Dame.
Okay.
And I got interviews for Center and Notre Dame.
Okay. Awesome.
And so Center was my first interview,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like my first internet interview and first live interview.
Mm-hmm.
And the internet interview went like the Zoom interview went great. We were
Mm-hmm.
just like we were talking, and then we were kind of like joking and stuff.
Yes. Oh, I love those
And,
types of interviews. You
right?
just
It went
connect
really
with the
good. I was
people, and you connect with the people. Yeah.
yeah. So we did that, and then they asked me like because I did that in like late fall. It was like October, November,
Mm-hmm.
and how it typically works in academia. You do those interviews in the fall, and then they bring you out in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, "Well, can you come in like 2 weeks?" And I was like, "Wait, I had my grant was due
Mm.
the day they set the interview, and I went to the interview."
What did you do with the Monell Center? Like, did you say anything?
I was like,
You
I
didn't
have
even
this
know if you had the
interview.
job yet. Well,
And my
that's
advisor had
faith right
already
there.
that is
That's
my
faith.
advisor had already told me,
Yeah.
he's like, I don't have money for you for another year.
Mm,
So either get a grant or find a different lab. So I
gotcha.
was like, I'll either look for another postdoc,
Right.
transition to another lab,
Right.
or get a
Right.
teaching job.
Gotcha.
But usually when people apply for teaching jobs, they're on the market for like a year.
Yes.
So I was like, let me send out these applications
Right.
and I'll still write on my grant.
Right. Right.
I'm not as motivated,
Yeah.
but I'll start writing on the
Right.
grant.
Right.
And they had it for that day, and I chose to go.
That's
And I was like, I'll just do another deadline.
wow. And so
um,
when you flew out to Kentucky, you did they hire you on the spot? Like what?
no, not particularly.
Okay.
Like I came to this interview like this is gonna be my first interview to get ready for like another
Yeah.
school. So I just came like whatever. I'm like it's Kentucky,
Right. You're not. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Especially
Yeah,
moving from
but
Philly.
to
Have you had
Kentucky, I
some
was
good
like this is
Kentucky
a guy.
bourbon? I do. You've had
Oh
okay,
yeah. I don't even I'm starting to get into bourbon
okay.
more cuz I live here.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to go on more bourbon
Yeah.
tours so that I can get an acquired taste. But I have like a nightly
Okay.
bourbon cuz
Okay. We'll
why
talk
not?
about that on the happy hour. The happy hour
Happy
special.
hour.
But okay, so you thought you were going out there and this was just like this was the test
It's like
ride.
my
Yeah.
pre-interview. This is
Yeah,
practice.
exactly.
Um so I went and first they had me like I went to interviews with different people and different groups of people. I had breakfast with a group of people. I had lunch with the students. And then I didn't do my talk or my class until like around 3. They don't do classes. They don't Their classes stop at 4 o'clock. Nothing goes past four
Mm-hmm.
o'clock. So I did like a 3 to 3:50
Mm-hmm.
um, presentation, and they said do it on like your background, your research. So I did like a smell and taste presentation,
Nice.
a mix of my dissertation, a mix of what I was doing at
Okay.
Monell. Um, so they don't have anyone who has a smell and taste background there.
Mm.
And when they do teach, sensation perception is a class where you go over all the
Mm-hmm.
senses, and they just kind of skip over smell and taste. And I
Gotcha.
was
So
like,
they were looking for someone like you.
yes, but they didn't say
Yeah.
anything. But like the staff was
Yeah.
great. Even in like my like when they have like the big interview with you and all the other faculty members on the search
Mm-hmm.
committee, it was real chill, and the students were so smart.
Yeah.
um and I did a demonstration. There's this retronasal olfaction demonstration, which is like that's how we taste
Yeah.
flavor, because your taste buds don't tell you if it's vanilla or cherry or chocolate. That's your sense of smell. That's how you experience flavor. So if you have one blocked, you can't experience the other. So that's why when your nose is clogged, when you're sick,
Yeah.
nothing tastes right.
Yes. So true. So true.
So I did a demonstration where they all had like jelly beans, and they would like close their
Mm-hmm.
nose and eat the jelly bean, try to figure out the
Right.
flavor, and then open their nose and then realize it was
Right.
strawberry or
Right.
whatever. So I did like that stuff, and the faculty seemed to like it. And then we like hung out afterwards and had a good
Yeah.
time. And I was like, shit. I like this school.
Oh.
I like I had never heard of this school. I didn't know it even
Yeah,
existed.
that's awesome.
And it's like a really nice liberal arts college. And so um they sent me, I applied, and I had my interview like December
Mhm.
9th, and I had a what call it, or letter,
A
like
offer
not an
letter.
application letter, but like an offer letter by the end of December.
Wow. Awesome. So from December 9th, you had your offer letter by the end of the summer. So what'd you do for 6 months? You didn't write that grant at Monell, right? So
No,
what
I
did
did not.
you do?
I did not. Right? Well, 2020 happened, so I
Oh,
didn't do
yeah,
it.
true, true. The year that,
I had all these plans. I'm gonna write this
yeah,
paper, and then
and then COVID happened.
so
Wow. So you
yeah,
weren't in the lab, like what? But I mean, some people were still required to work from home with COVID. Like, what did you do in that time frame?
I was bad.
You were bad.
So
Oh,
I was
should we
bad.
whisper?
I was supposed.
What did you do?
I was supposed to be putting that, like the research I did, into a
Gotcha.
paper, but I was just like, I wasn't
Yeah.
motivated at all. I like purposely, when I started my postdoc, I wanted to not do any work
Yeah.
at home. I had made it so that I would do all my work in the
Hmm.
office, and when I came home, this is
Right.
relaxation time, da
Right.
da da. Which is why working from home has been a
Yeah.
nightmare
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
entire time. I
Yeah.
can't focus. Or if I, you were sure, remember in Tallahassee, you were like, oh, you can go here to
Yeah.
work, go here. We would go to all the different
Yes.
cafes.
We got.
That's what I was doing in Philly. I was going to all the
Yeah.
different cafes beforehand. And then when COVID happened, I
Yeah.
couldn't go anywhere. So I watched a lot of Netflix. Um,
It said I was bad. Yep.
so bad. I watched a lot of Netflix. And then um, once like early
Hmm.
summer started, because of all of, they had to quickly, center had to quickly transition after spring break
Hmm.
into virtual. Their Center for Teaching and Learning did a whole bunch of workshops on like different virtual aspects, so using different things like Google
Hmm.
Classroom,
Hmm.
Pear Deck, um, all these different tools that I can use virtually, because I didn't know I've never
Right.
taught
Right.
virtually. So I would do their
Hmm.
workshops, and I wasn't doing.
Yeah.
I was bad. So I'm gonna write that
Okay.
paper this
Yay.
summer.
So we still have a publication in the works. Awesome.
Yes, it's
Yep. T,
in
T
publication.
what is it? TBA, to be determined. Yeah.
Yeah,
TBD. TBD.
but yeah, it's TBD.
Yeah.
So like I'm trying to work on that, but like it was really hard. And then like with all the riots,
Hmm.
and like Philly had a lot of like they were up and down my street, because they had like there were riots all down 52nd Street. I lived on
Oh
50th
wow.
Street. So like, and there was just like when the whatchamacallit, they had the, not the armed forces, but the
Cards.
National
Yeah.
Guard come in, and they would do flashbangs all night,
Wow. Yeah.
all night. And so I was just like, I'm not doing this. I could not
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
focus. So,
You can tell.
but like no one was
Yeah.
productive
Yeah.
then.
No one. No one in the world. Seriously. No one in the world. People are just trying to
So
cope
I was
with
like,
like not being able to live a normal life and dealing with loved ones and friends being sick and some even passing. Like it was just
mhm.
that year will go down in history. I'm just waiting for the first textbook to come out about
Oh my god,
yeah.
2020 is gonna be insane. And I want to make, like, if I do have kids and they have to read about this, like, we're
Yes.
gonna get this shit right.
Yes.
I lived it.
Right.
Don't
Yep.
whitewash it.
Nope. Do not. Do not. Do not. This was a tough year. Very, very tough year. Okay, Jen.
Mhm.
Well, I'm happy for you. Obviously, I personally know you, and I know
Thank
that
you.
working in a liberal arts college is something that you've been wanting for a long time. Even before the Monell, I remember you saying your long term goal was to work at a liberal arts college, and you got there. And so, obviously, achieving
Thank
your
you.
goals and doing the things that work best for you. Sometimes it's not just I'm going to do this and it's going to be accomplished. Sometimes you may have detours or you may have situations or times when you're put in a place where it's like, okay, am I going to choose what's comfortable for me now, or am I going to choose something I know I
Mhm.
really want to do and just jump out on, on faith, or jump out and just believe the universe will work in my favor. And like, I'm proud of you and I'm happy for
Yeah.
you that is
Thank you.
things
I
that
love you
has
too.
happened. So, what advice would you give to students out there that are you, right? The student that is
Mhm.
loves the arts, wants to work as a liberal arts teacher, or not even just those students, but just people that know who they are. They're comfortable in who they are, and sometimes life pushed them in maybe certain areas or places that didn't totally align with their passions. And you're
Yeah.
in a place now where you're happy and you're doing the things that work for what you've always wanted. Like, what would your advice be to someone who's not there yet, but like
Mhm.
they're trying to figure that out?
It's kind of like I remember someone saying this advice to me is like focus on the things that you like when you have something to do and you keep deferring to some other thing to keep you busy. Like, what is that activity that you just really love to do for fun?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of times you don't think anything of it, but it can eventually lead to like where you're going,
Right.
and it can be like an inkling of where you would like to be.
Right.
And so I couldn't focus on being a really good teacher as a TA because I had a dissertation to put together. So I know I wasn't my best self.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to be a better teacher, but then in the back of my mind, I was like, teachers don't get paid, but industry does. And so that's why I chose Monell, because I would have my feet in both areas. And I let them know early that I have an interest in
Right.
teaching, but I may not go.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, if you want to teach on the side, that's up to you.
Right.
You just gotta
Yeah.
make up the work.
Right.
And doing that solidified it
Yes.
because I was like, I can't be at the bench all day. I can't do this.
Yes.
And I don't know, for some reason, like for someone who's in college forever,
Mm-hmm.
you would think I want to never set foot on a college campus.
Yeah.
But I know I just love being on a college
Yeah.
campus.
That's awesome.
It's,
I have to come
yeah, so like
visit. I
if
want to come to Kentucky.
yeah, it's a really
Yeah.
oh no, come on.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that we could drink.
Bourbon. That would be nice. I'm not a huge bourbon gal, but I'll definitely drink Kentucky bourbon.
There's other stuff. There's like winery stuff. The Derby.
Oh,
I
oh,
need Derby
duh,
money.
Kentucky Derby. I've never been. So yeah, okay. We're
Yeah,
planning at
me neither.
2022 or 23. We're in there.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
it's fun. Also for like people who are interested, um, explore. You
Hmm.
know, because I kind of if I never would have had the Monell experience, I would always be wondering if.
Right. Oh, that's
So
so
I did
good.
that.
That's so good.
I know.
Mm,
But like always have like a not like a plan, but don't just be like willy nilly and explore.
right.
Like have backup plans.
Right, right. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jen. This conversation was
Thank you.
amazing. I'm sure so
This is
many,
fun.
I'm glad you think so. Yay. So I'm sure so many students and professionals are going to be able to resonate with this. So we'll definitely have to have you back another time.
Yeah,
Yes.
anytime a white coat, white collar.
Yay. Thanks you all for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time. That concludes today's episode of the White Coat, White Collar podcast. If you like these discussions and want to continue hearing more, please subscribe and leave a comment on the platform that you've tuned into today. For more resources on unique career options for STEM and healthcare professionals, please follow White Coat, White Collar on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you love what I'm doing and would like to be a sponsor to help me continue demystifying the career landscape, please visit whitecoatwhitecollar.com/sponsor. Thank you for tuning in and all the best on your career journey. Remember, take the journey one step at a time and don't be too hard on yourself. You got this. Until next time.